Chilling new details about the murder of a popular water polo coach in her Sydney school have been revealed in court. It was played showing Lilie carrying her water polo swimmers into the bathroom to change and Paul following her with a...
A young woman, full of life and dreams, is brutally murdered inside one of Sydney's most prestigious schools. The shocking crime leaves the city shaken, raising questions no one can yet answer. Who killed Lilie James, and why? You're watching More Crime, where we bring you real stories of mystery and tragedy. New videos are uploaded every second day, so make sure to subscribe and stay with us until the end. On an ordinary Wednesday night in October 2023, the halls of St Andrew's Cathedral School in Sydney, Australia, fell silent. What had been a place of learning, filled with laughter and routine, suddenly became the scene of an unthinkable crime. 21-year-old water polo coach Lilie James was found brutally murdered inside the school's gym bathroom. The brutality of the attack and the shocking location left the entire nation stunned. Lilie wasn't just another name in the headlines. She was described by friends and family as radiant, compassionate, and ambitious. Her passion for sports and teaching had already made her a beloved figure among students and colleagues. But behind the warm smile she carried every day, something darker was quietly building in the background, something that no one around her could have imagined would end her life so suddenly. Police soon discovered the killer wasn't a stranger. He was someone Lilie knew, someone who had once stood right beside her inside that very school. The discovery would unravel a devastating story of obsession, betrayal, and violence, a story that shocked Sydney to its core. Lilie James was just 21 years old, but those who knew her said she carried the energy of someone who could light up a room. Born and raised in Sydney, she had grown up with a deep love for sports, eventually turning that passion into a career. At St Andrew's Cathedral School, one of Sydney's most respected institutions, she worked as a water polo coach and support staff member. Students adored her, colleagues admired her, and her family was proud of the young woman she was becoming. On the outside, Lilie's life seemed perfectly aligned with her dreams. She was ambitious, full of warmth, and deeply dedicated to helping others. She wasn't just a coach, she was a mentor, a role model, and someone her students looked up to. But beneath this picture of normalcy, there were tensions quietly brewing. Lilie had recently been in a brief relationship with a fellow staff member at the school, 24-year-old Paul Thigen. Paul had once been a student at St Andrews and had returned to work as a sports assistant. While their connection was short-lived, it soon became clear that Paul's feelings were far more intense than Lilie's. Friends later described how Lilie had tried to distance herself after realizing the relationship wasn't working. She wanted to focus on her career and personal goals, but Paul's behavior began to raise concerns. Behind closed doors, he struggled with rejection and control, emotions that would soon spiral out of hand. No one around Lilie could have predicted how dangerous the situation was becoming. To her friends and family, she was safe inside the walls of a prestigious school, but in reality, she was standing closer to danger than anyone realized. On the evening of October 25, 2023, St Andrew's Cathedral School had long emptied of its students. The classrooms were dark, the hallways silent, and only a few staff members remained. Among them was Lilie James, staying late in the gym area. It should have been just another ordinary night, but instead, it turned into her final hours. At around 7 p.m., Lilie was seen entering the school's sports facilities. Unbeknownst to her, Paul Thigen was also inside the building. Security cameras later captured him following her movements closely. The two had reportedly spoken earlier in the day, but something about that evening was different. Witnesses said there had been tension between them, though no one could have imagined how far it would go. Inside the gym bathroom, a confrontation took place, one that quickly turned violent. Armed with a hammer, Paul launched a sudden, brutal attack. Lilie had no chance to escape. The sheer violence of the assault shocked even seasoned investigators when they later arrived at the scene. At 12:30 a.m., police received a chilling call. Paul himself had phoned authorities, leading them to Lilie's body inside the school. Officers rushed to the scene, only to discover the horror of what had unfolded. Lilie had suffered catastrophic injuries, leaving no doubt that this was a deliberate, frenzied act of violence. The discovery shattered the peace of the night and left Sydney reeling. How could something so violent, so calculated, happen inside the very walls of a school, a place meant for safety and growth? This was not just a murder. It was a betrayal carried out in a place that symbolized trust, and it marked the beginning of a manhunt that would stretch across the city. After calling police in the early hours of the morning, Paul Thigen vanished. By the time officers arrived at St. Andrew's Cathedral School and discovered Lilie's body, he was already gone. What followed was a desperate search across Sydney as detectives tried to track his movements. Police quickly pieced together CCTV footage showing Paul leaving the school grounds shortly after the attack. He had left behind a crime scene so brutal that even veteran officers were shaken. With his history at the school and his close relationship with Lilie, investigators wasted no time naming him as their primary suspect. As word spread, Sydney was gripped with fear and outrage. The idea that a young woman could be murdered inside one of the city's most prestigious schools was already shocking, but now the killer was on the run. Local media broadcast Paul's image across every screen, urging the public to come forward with sightings. For nearly 24 hours, police scoured train stations, parklands, and coastal areas, following every possible lead. Finally, their search led them to Sydney's The Gap, a notorious clifftop known both for its breathtaking views and its tragic history as a suicide site. There, they discovered Paul's belongings, and soon after, his body. Investigators confirmed he had taken his own life by jumping from the cliffs, ending the search in the most haunting way possible. For many, this raised even more questions than answers. Why had Paul carried out such a vicious attack? What drove him to destroy two lives in one night, Lilie's, and his own? The case may have closed quickly, but the emotional scars it left on Lilie's loved ones, the school community, and the city of Sydney would last far longer. The news of Lilie James' murder spread like wildfire across Australia. What shocked people most wasn't just the brutality of the crime, but the setting, a prestigious school in the heart of Sydney. Parents, students, and teachers found themselves walking through the same halls where such horror had unfolded, unable to shake the thought of what had happened within those walls. Lilie's family was devastated. They described her as a vibrant young woman with her whole future ahead of her, a daughter, sister, and friend who was full of life and joy. For them, the tragedy was not only the loss of Lilie but the manner in which her life had been taken, senselessly, violently, and by someone she had once trusted. The school community was equally shaken. St. Andrew's Cathedral School closed its doors temporarily, giving staff and students time to process the grief and trauma. Counselors were brought in to support the young students, many of whom had looked up to Lilie not just as a coach, but as a role model and mentor. Public outrage grew louder as details emerged about Paul's history with the school and his relationship with Lilie. Many questioned how signs of obsession and control had gone unnoticed, and whether more could have been done to protect her. Candlelight vigils were held in Sydney to honor Lilie's memory, as thousands came together to grieve a life stolen far too soon. For Australia, Lilie's story became more than just another crime report. It was a reminder of how dangerous unchecked obsession and violence can become, and how, sometimes, the greatest threats don't come from strangers, but from those closest to us. In the days following Lilie James' murder, discussions spread far beyond Sydney. People weren't only asking how this crime had happened, but why. How could a young man like Paul Thigen, a former student-turned-staff member, spiral into such violent obsession? Investigators later revealed that Lilie and Paul's relationship had been brief, and Lilie had ended it. For her, it was a simple decision to move on. But for Paul, rejection appeared to trigger something far darker. Experts pointed out that cases like this often stem from unhealthy patterns of control, possessiveness, and obsession, warning signs that can sometimes be overlooked until it's too late. Lilie's case became a painful reminder that violence isn't always committed by strangers lurking in the shadows. Sometimes, it comes from those closest, disguised as affection. For Lilie's family and friends, the tragedy will never truly make sense. But for the rest of us, her story carries a powerful warning, one that cannot be ignored. As the weeks passed, Sydney tried to move forward, but the name Lilie James remained on everyone's lips. For her family, the pain of losing a daughter in such a brutal way will never fade. For her friends, there will always be an empty seat, a missing smile, a silence where Lilie's laughter once lived. And for her students, the absence of their young, vibrant coach will always be a reminder of how fragile life can be. Photographs showed her smiling, surrounded by teammates, her spirit radiating through every frame. To those who knew her best, she wasn't defined by the way her life ended, but by the way she lived, with compassion, energy, and an unwavering love for the people around her. The brutality of her death left scars on Sydney's heart, but her memory also sparked conversations about safety, respect, and the importance of recognizing warning signs in relationships. Her story was not just one of tragedy, but also of awareness, a chance for society to learn, to protect others, and to ensure her loss wasn't in vain. Lilie James' life, though cut short, continues to shine as a reminder of resilience, love, and the urgent need for change. She deserved so much more than the violence that took her away. And though her voice has been silenced, her story speaks louder than ever, urging us all to pay attention, to care, and to stand against the darkness that hides behind familiar faces. If you found Lilie's story important and want to hear more real cases like this, make sure to subscribe to Noir Crime. We upload new true crime stories every second day, and your support helps us keep these stories alive.